Hello everybody and welcome to the 3.17 release video. Today I've got Valentin Zickner with me. Hi Valentin.
Hello.
And we've got a busy agenda. As usual, we've got lots of features, actually way too many to put into this video. So we're going to focus on some of the highlights, but as always, there is plenty more in the release notes that we will link in the video down below. We're also going to talk a lot about some acronyms, IDP, Intelligent Document Processing, RPA, Robotic Process Automation, and we'll talk and tell you all about what that means and how we do those things in Flowable. We're going to talk about forms, got some new components, got a lot of enhancements there. We've got also a section dedicated to writing custom components because that's something that we completely revamped in 3.17. We're going to talk about various things really, but I think the best place to start, Valentin, is in where most of the stories in Flowable start, that is in Flowable Design, right?
Yes, and you almost said everything already. Maybe one small thing to add. For some of the topics, we also have actually already an how-to video, so you can check them out as well. So let's get started.
Okay, so we're in Flowable Design, and as I just said, there's a lot of new things in Flowable Design, and we're going to take a few highlights. Now, one of the things that many people have asked for is that in a situation that you're working on models, you're working on apps, many models, you're linking things together, you're unlinking them again, and suddenly you don't remember where you put a model. I mean, we've all been there, right? Well, in 3.17, we added a feature to help you with that, right, Valentin?
Exactly. And here right now, I'm within my workspace on the screen where I see all the different apps. Now, the new thing on this screen is actually when you click here on models at the top. So before that wasn't there. Mm-hmm. Now, when you click on models, you see all the different models which are here. You can go ahead and filter by name, for example. You can go ahead and then have a list view instead of the grid view. You can go ahead and sort them and so on. You can filter by model type when you just want to see the processes. Something like that. All of that is possible now across the different apps.
Yeah.
I mean, that screen was there before, but only within an app and not across multiple apps.
Yeah, but that's cool now, but how do I know which app I'm in, right? So I got the models now, but I still want to know, trace back basically, where did I put this thing?
Yeah, so let's just take a random process. I will take that one here now. What you can do is you can look at the usages, and there you see what it is using and in which app that is. But I mean, the most significant thing here is what it is used by, and there you then have directly the name of the app.
Yeah, that is
also when you go ahead and open it, you see that this model is inside the dispute handling app. So we have that as well.
So while we're at the screen, Valentin, another feature that I have, on my list of stuff I definitely have to ask you about is copy paste across models, right? So how does that work?
So we can go ahead and select here multiple items, and I just want to select a few more.
Yeah.
There we go. And now we can press that copy button or press Command C or Control C, depending on which system you are. And just for sake of demo, I create a new process. So that's my sample process. I hope I didn't use that name before. And now we can go ahead and paste. And it's pasting then the elements which we have copied here inside my new model. We can also go ahead and just connect that now so that we have one nice nice process in here and continue modeling in here.
Cool. All right. Another thing during modeling that if you've got, I mean, your models now are, demo wise, quite small, let's say, but you've got a big model.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I put a certain thing, but I remember vaguely that I named it in a certain way. So what can I do now in 3.17?
Yeah. For example, when you named it fraudulent or something like that, you can just open that search button here at the top.
Cool.
Then you will have a dialog. You see different information in here. And you can also click on those elements, and then it's jumping to those specific things, highlighting them. So here we have a condition where we check actually on fraudulent. And then we have that task, both of them belonging together. But I mean, when you have a large model and use things at different places, then this can be really handy.
Cool. Yeah, cool. All right, another item on my list I definitely had to ask you about is history and comparison. What does that mean, Valentin?
Yeah. We had that actually in BPMN, CMMN, and maybe a few others already before. So let me go out of that model And maybe I even go into another app. So in my Forms demo app, since here I'm sure that I have a service model, for example. And now new in that service model, there's also that version explorer in here where you see that 17 hours ago, I changed that model already. And now we can compare that to that version 17 hours ago. And we see actually that we removed a few elements in here in the list. And when we now go ahead and just as an example, I'm going to add another operation in another parameter in here. So that's my test input parameter, input parameter. And we select the type in here. Let's say this is a date. And then I save that. I now look at that comparison and compare with that old version. Then we see here we have a modified version basically since I removed one and added then one again. So it detects that as modified here, but we still have one which is removed.
Cool. All right. Now that is super. And this is working across all the model types that we support.
All the different model types. We can even go ahead and then say we would like to revert to this old version. And then we have the old version. And in case we created any app revision, we can also compare to those app revisions. So when you make a release from your app, that is also possible. Then just a specific model to compare that to an old version.
That's very useful. Okay.
Yes.
I think that's quite some highlights for Flowable Design. Again, way more, but we got to keep this video reasonably within acceptable timeframes. What's next, Valentin? What can you talk about next?
I think the next is then we are looking at task permissions and how we can, for example, have a task which is only executed by another person which didn't do that task before or a similar task.
Okay, let's go. All right, so Valentin, before the segue, you already talked about task permissions. Now, in general, in process management, this is called a 4i check. And it happens in many kind of industries where you, for whatever reasons, often regulatory reasons, that you want to have a specific task being reviewed by at least 2 people, hence the name 4i check. So in 3.17, we added a feature or a couple of features that help you to model a 4i check, but also much more. Right, Valentin?
Exactly. So that was already possible before, but that was a little bit complicated. And now it's really easy. So I have here a simple process with one check and then another check. And you already had that user in here where you were able to define the assignee. When you ensured basically that the candidate users are not one of the users who did do the task before, you were able to do it already. But now when you scroll down, there's a disallowed user for assignee, a disallowed group for assignee, and a disallowed task completers for assignee. And I'm not going into too much detail now here. I just configured basically that the person who started the process as well as the person completing the check one is disallowed. Exactly.
Cool. So basically the person starting this process can't basically complete this task. And then basically also the one that we selected dynamically or is assigned dynamically, let's say in check one. Okay, let's see. Can you show me how that works at runtime?
Yes, I actually have here, as Shane Bone, already completed the check one. We see that actually when we go here into the history and then look at the completed task, check one was completed by Shane Bone just a couple of minutes ago.
He should not be able to do that task, right?
Exactly. And when we claim it now, and yes, I would like to claim it, we see an error message that he is not able to complete that task because he already did do a task before. So let's quickly sign out and then sign in as Sunnyflower, for example. And Sunnyflower wasn't doing that task before. So when we go for the unassigned tasks here, we can just quickly claim that task. And here it works. So we can just go ahead and approve that task. Actually, when you would like to see the full modeling of this process and the execution with a few more steps, I also recorded a how-to video for that.
All right, and the link will now appear on your screen as it tends to do on YouTube. So that was the task permissions. There's a lot of things that are possible. Go and check out that movie that Valentin is referencing. What's next, Valentin?
I think next on our list is actually the ABBYY integration.
All right, let's go. Okay, so Valentin, you mentioned ABBYY before, and for the people that are watching that don't know what ABBYY is one of the leading IDP products. IDP is an acronym for Intelligent Document Processing. So you got to imagine features like document classification, extraction of metadata out of documents, and in this day and age, of course, a lot of AI-powered features. Now, in 3.17, we have a first-class citizen integration with ABBYY, which means that it's a part of our palette. We have some specific features for it, but Valentin, you can probably explain this way better than I can, right?
We have here already on the left-hand side our ABBYY service task, and that's the core thing behind the ABBYY integration. And it's an interesting task, actually, since we have here the configuration possibility for the documents. So when we have an attachment component on our start event, for example, we can reference those documents in here. We then can go ahead and add a skill here. So we can say that we would like to have the flow money skill inside that list.
And just for my understanding, what is a skill in this context?
A skill in this context is actually telling ABBYY how to extract the data and what to do with the document. So with that, we are saying what should be done within ABBYY.
Okay.
And then in addition to that, we also have a flavor of a human task or user task here inside our ABBYY service task. And with that, we have a review form here. So that review form we can use in case something goes wrong on ABBYY side and ABBYY is not 100% confident to model then what the user is supposed to see in this case.
So ideally, this task behaves like an automatic task, right? If everything goes well, but if it doesn't, it actually transforms into a manual user task.
Exactly.
Cool.
And let's just look quickly at it, since I don't want to go in all the details of that process which we have. And there's a document already prepared from a colleague, and we now started that process. Now, when we look here at the history, we see that we are now within that ABBYY service task.
It's
and at this point,
processing, right? Asynchronously processing at this point. Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
And with that, it takes now a little bit also until ABBYY did do all the processing that we need to know basically how we fit into the schedule. And then eventually we might see an ABBYY manual review task. If, in case everything goes well, we don't see that ABBYY manual review task. But here at this case, we see it. And here we see actually then all the information entered as well as the documents which we have here. Or the document which we uploaded that we can compare that information. And we can now go ahead and complete that task. And with that, complete our review, or in case needed, we could also change some information.
Cool.
So let's just complete that. And then we are already done with the ABBYY task. So it's now going back to the processing. And with that, then eventually it will move forward. So let me just quickly refresh the page here. It's still at that ABBYY service task. So ABBYY is doing here still some heavy lifting.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how this is really useful, as any kind of case or process really has these days a lot of data, a lot of documents associated to it, and just getting the right information out of that without having to, read it on your screen, or even worse, printing it and having to, fill in these things. This is going to save you a lot of time, right?
Exactly. And once that task is actually done, we have all the information extracted from that task on our process. So we are then basically able to use that later on as well.
But if you want to, I think we did also a Flowfest movie on this, right? So I guess if you want to know more about this and what's going on beyond this first kind of step, I think you can watch that movie, right? Where we think like 40 minutes all about this particular integration, right?
Exactly. And we are going to link that movie here so you can directly check that out.
Perfect. All right. So what's next, Valentin?
Next on our list actually is the Flowable forms and what we did in there.
All right, cool. Okay, forms. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to forms. There's the design part, there's the work part. So I suggest we start with something simple. A new component always makes everybody happy. So we've got now a new component in 3.17. Valentin, can you just show me?
Yes, and it's actually the slider component, and it does what you expect it to do. You can slide it around. You can configure the minimum, the maximum, the interval you would like to go. I added here just for visibility the number which it is currently, but that's about it.
And that's all you expect from a slider component, right? Now, something more advanced is we also added a service-bound data table, right? So a data table where the data is actually being populated from a service registry, which means that because the service registry is, in a sense, generic, you can do REST, you can do expressions, you can do scripts, right? And you can do many other things with the new release. And this data is now bound to this particular data table.
Exactly. We have here a service registry table, and you have seen it maybe at the beginning. It was a little bit slow in loading because we have probably not a fast REST service behind it. And it is loading the data from that service definition.
This is a public
as we
REST
have it
API,
here.
right?
That's a public REST API. We can go from one page to the next page and so on. It takes a little bit to load, and then we basically have that.
And can you show me that
here
in design too?
Yes, I can show that to you in design. That is how it is, how it looks. We have here then the service model, which is really nice, since before it was when you have cross-site scripting that you were not able to load all the data. Now we just reference here the service model.
Cool. And this is a data table, but it also works for selects, right? We also now have a service registry bound select component.
Exactly. That is here as well. You see it actually here on the left-hand side.
Cool. But I also spot something that I haven't seen in the previous release in that table, right? What is that?
So here we actually have the possibility to configure different elements which we would like to have. So before that was a little bit fiddly. You needed to go ahead and enter some JavaScript. Now we have a wide range of elements which we can just use here to add our default buttons and format things in here.
Okay, cool.
And that we can actually look at here in the runtime as well. So we just have a simple button where we can now navigate to our planet. It's opening here in a new tab. You could also navigate to an external system and all that different stuff.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's stay on the topic of data tables because everybody loves tables, of course. Data object data tables. What can you tell me about that? What's new in 3.17 here?
So in 3.17, we actually have now as a new feature here that you can see the total as well as you can use it with pagination. So we can navigate between the different pages and we see how many records we have in total and how many records are displayed.
And this might sound or look quite easy, but technically behind the scenes, this is not that trivial because this also works for database and REST-based data objects, by the way. And it also means that if you're doing REST, as we were doing, for example, with the other API, you need to configure how that count is returned because every REST API is different. There's no standard of returning a count in REST, right? So you got to map that, which Valentin has done in his example. But in this case, you're also using database-backed data objects, right? And there, what we're actually doing behind the scenes, if you've enabled this, is doing an extra query based on the query you've defined. Because you know, if you watch the previous movies, that you can do some really complex kind of queries with your database-backed data objects. Well, it takes that query and also does a count with the same parameter. So it's just not, it's more to it than just adding a number to the screen. That's the easy part. The hard part is actually that is doing all of these things automatically for you behind the scenes.
And with that, it is really efficient since it only loads the data which you are going to see, but it still counts all the data.
Correct.
Which is
that's
really nice.
Indeed. And also maybe not real visible on the screen is before data object data tables. They could also be, they can only be done with infinite scrolling. And we've also, because we now have the counts, you can also enable now paging. Many people have asked us for that, both the counts and the paging, and that's now possible for data object data tables, right?
And specify the page size and so on.
Exactly. I also spot a new button there on the right-hand side, which wasn't there before for data object data tables, right, Valentin?
For data object data tables, where do you see that?
The export, right?
The export button. Yeah, I completely missed that actually. So that one is also new for the data object data tables. It does the same thing than the one in the data table. So I'm not pressing it now and show the file where we basically see.
It gets the CSV and that's it, right? So it does do the same thing. But again, many people, because many customers are using data objects, have asked for this feature, and it is now available in 3.17. All right, that was a quick tour across the form landscape, let's say. It's way more. Go and check out the release notes. But let's go to the next topic, which is custom form components. And that is, a deep dive into some technicalities, right?
Exactly. So we are sticking with forms. Now you might have seen it actually already on my design screen, go into the direction of custom form components.
All right, cool. All right, so let's talk about custom form components. Now, custom form components have been possible in previous releases of Flowable, but you have to exactly know where to put certain files. You would have to kind of make your own compilation procedure and then bake it into a certain kind of way of working that you have in your custom project. And that's all, quite finicky, quite cumbersome. In 3.17, we've completely revamped this approach, and all of this is now baked into Flowable Design, also with a new kind of tooling that we call Flowable CLI, command line interface, like classic kind of development is in the front end world. But Valentin, you've got something prepared to demonstrate this, right?
Exactly. I have a really quick demo prepared here, and it also didn't take that much of preparation. Mm-hmm. So the first what we are going to see here is that we have now that QR code component here on the left side. I actually dragged and dropped that, but we could do that again since it doesn't matter that much. So that's just my plain new QR code component. It has some default values behind here, but you can also configure the configuration properties. And by default, it's showing us now an error. And that is because we haven't uploaded anything yet. But instead of doing that, we can actually switch on the developer mode. And the developer mode actually allows us to connect the CLI to it. So when I go to the CLI, I just say Flowable Components Watch. That takes now a few milliseconds. And then this basically comes up here with it is ready to run. And now here we can basically reload that, and it shows up that page which we have over here with our component.
So technically, if I'm getting this right, it is watching the changes on your local machine. Here we go. Your kind of source code, and it is then pushing any change you make to that to Flowable Design, so you can immediately try it out. Okay.
So exactly what I have here in my component, that is then represented here without me going ahead and doing a build, then executing it, adding it to the class path, and so on as it was before. So now it's really simple. And we can even go ahead and try that out. Here I can just simply use that QR code component to generate a QR code for the URL or whatever, or text of your choice.
Yeah, nice. And of course, this is the part where we're building it, we're coding it. There is way more when it comes to the life cycle of a custom form component, as it, touches the apps that it's been used in and how you're going to do migration and stuff like that. But all of that is actually covered in a Flowfest video that we have, that we link now on the screen. And there's also a how-to video where we talk in detail about all of these things around custom form components.
Exactly. That we are going to link as well.
Okay. So what's next, Valentin?
Next on our list is actually the RPA integration.
All right, let's go. Okay, let's talk about RPA. RPA is an acronym that stands for Robotic Process Automation. If you don't know what it is, it's basically the use case where you've got an application that is not exposing any API that you can connect to or integrate as you usually would do in a process or a case. This can be for various reasons. It can be that the application or business logic, whatever it is in a dated application and there simply is no API, or that there is regulatory reasons for not exposing it, or stuff like that. In any case, what you have is these RPA solutions that can act, the robot, as the name implies, is acting like a human, and it is controlling your computer screen, as if it was a human sitting behind the machine. But Valentin has prepared a demo for us that can show how this works in reality.
Exactly. And we have here the RPA framework task. So we see that basically as one small piece of your process or case, just a single task, which you then can include. And I have here the company evaluation task, which is going ahead and using then the discounted cash flow task from the RPA framework. I will go and show you that in a second. First, I want to show you the different input parameters. So we are handing information from our process to that task. And then we also receive some outputs coming back. So you have an integration in here, which you can use to basically transmit that data. Now, our task here is actually pretty long. We have in here the discounted cash flow. We read the input parameters. We do some stuff that you are going to see in a second. And then we write back the output parameters. Now, one thing you might have seen in here is that we have also the job topic. That is company evaluation here. And when we now use the Flowable client to execute those tasks, we provide, first of all, the Python module, which is there to execute those. We provide the token, and then as well as a job topic. With that, you can decide which machine is going to execute it. And last but not least, your robot file, which you would like to execute as well.
And this is, because you said job topic, this is using behind the scenes the external worker pattern, which means that your process is going into a wait state at the moment it arrives at this particular RPA task, meaning that it won't take any resources. So your process arrives there, goes into a wait state, and then on the other machine where your RPA is running, it's basically then processing whatever it needs to do, and it's going to push back the data that you need to Flowable. But until that point, there is no resources being taken by Flowable, and it's just waiting for that thing to happen. So it's a very efficient pattern. It also is available into different kind of programming languages. In this case, we're using Python because that's what the RPA framework is written in. And it's basically bringing that all, gluing that all nicely together. But anyway, Valentin, you've got that running. So what's the next step?
Yeah, the next step is actually to start our process. So I am starting here now the company evaluation process. I just provide a few numbers in here that our process is going to run. I say here that is 12%. And then we can go back. We now see how our external worker is going ahead and watching that topic basically. And whenever there's a new task, so there's polling in the background, since that system here is basically then requesting, do you have something new to do? And once there's something new to do, we are then going to see how that is executed. So it just takes a few more seconds until the point basically where it picks up.
This is configurable, right? You can configure how much you want to pull this. And but you can see that now Valentin hasn't been able to type this fast, right? This is the robot taking over, filling in the stuff, and pushing that data back to Flowable, right?
Exactly. And when we go back here, we also see that the job execution is done. We have some output documents, but for those details, just watch the how-to video, which is associated to that, since there are all the details. When I go back and forth here in that process, I see that I have now a task with the result, and comparing those numbers actually with our Excel file, we see that this is this number over here and this number which we have inside our process now as a result.
And of course, Excel is just one of the examples of what is possible with this kind of integration. But as you know, there is a lot of business logic encapsulated in Excel sheets, as Excel is running the world, as I tend to say.
Exactly.
All right. So, Valentin, next topic. What's up?
Next topic, we are going to talk about the cloud, actually.
Okay, cool. Let's go. All right, cloud. So I don't know if you've noticed, but we've been running the previous section on RPA against the cloud. In the URL, you will see it's going against our cloud URL. But there's also something on the screen that I'm sure people have questions about. There's a little dude on the right-hand side, Valentin, right? What's that dude there doing?
So that's actually Moss. And Moss is going ahead and guiding us through different things, what we can do. So we have a few tutorials here, for example, my first process. When we click on that, we start a new tutorial where we can go ahead and do different steps. Here, that one is going to create an Hello World application. So we have all those different steps. And in this case, it's only 13, which you can complete. And then you have a simple Hello World app with Flowable.
Yeah, I also see AI there being mentioned, and that's interesting to mention. So we talked a lot about AI in previous videos. There's a link is on the screen right now. So we're not going to spend too much details as you can watch those videos. It's obviously included in the 3.17 release. So everything we talked about in the previous months and weeks is available in the 3.17 release, but it is also enabled on the cloud. So you don't need to install anything to try out these AI features that we've been talking about. But maybe you can just show it, right, Valentin?
Yes, I actually started here with that AI tutorial. So let me navigate to that exercise. Here we have a service model. That's just one of the things which we have. And In here, we can go ahead and basically test then our service model. We have a simple prompt here. What is the typical weather? We can enter here location, for example, Brussels, and then the time of the year could be winter. And now when we
I
say
can look
test AI
outside already
prompt,
and tell you it's a crappy weather.
okay, frequent rain, occasional snow. Probably you don't have the occasional right now. And
Right now it's raining, so that's
yeah.
about right.
Yeah, so we have that one. When you complete the exercise, obviously there are other elements which you need to do. For example, it's Zurich and summer. That's probably slightly better weather than what you expected. And now that exercise here completed, and we have here then also occasional rain showers. So with that, we have done here now 2 steps from our tutorial.
Cool.
And we have shown you a basic AI functionality.
Yeah, I would say go out and register for the cloud and play with it yourself, right? There is really nothing stopping you. It's really easy to get going and just try all the things we've been showing. All right.
Exactly.
Let's go into the last part of this movie. And that's basically the part where we gather all the things that we wanted to talk about, but really couldn't fit into any other kind of category. So, my favorite one where we can quickly go through all of these things, but they're quite important, quite interesting to talk about, but real quick. Stay tuned.
So there's a really long list of other improvements which we have. We are only able to cover a few of them, and the first one on my list is actually the incident reporting. Johan, what is that about?
Yeah, incident reporting is basically it's something that we're monitoring continuously when you're running all kind of cases processes against a real running system. And the problem you sometimes have is you've got slow jobs, or you've got kind of things you don't really know where they're happening. And for that, you're already in the right kind of application control. And if you now go to incidents fountain, here we go. Right. And you have one slow job, as you can see. Now, slow job is one of the types we're actively monitoring for. And if you click it, you can actually see now the kind of information. It tells me this is where your slow job is happening. Now, the threshold, as you can see here, is 5 seconds. And this one ran for 1 minute, which is obviously way larger than the threshold. But you can configure all of this. But the thing in 317, which is new, is that you got one central location where you can go to and find all of this information. There's more to it than just slow jobs, but there's a whole Flowfest movie that we made that we did a session in Flowfest talking about the incident reporting, but also going the next step, how we can attach a system like, for example, Grafana to it and actively monitor and alert people. Because, of course, monitoring is the first step, but you have to have monitoring before you can alert people. And that's exactly what we talk about in the Flowfest video that we link now on the screen.
Cool. The next point on my list is actually that there's a new way to configure the body of an post request or something like that when you're using the service register.
Yeah, exactly. So if you go to Flowable Design, and there we go, you're already prepared, well prepared. If you now model any kind of HTTP method or REST API that supports body, you can now reference a body template. I mean, there's various ways we can configure the body before with the input mappings, and it could get quite complex. But many people have asked us, like, okay, we just want to reference a text template and do this all ourselves for whatever reason, because, it's maybe too complex, right? It's a really big tree, and you could do it with Flowable in the input mapping, but it was cumbersome, and now you can just reference it. So a small feature, but I think that makes many people happy because it's been asked quite a few times by customers.
Indeed. Then I have here on my list as well that we upgraded all the dependencies, frameworks, and so on to the latest version.
Exactly. Which obviously is, necessary if you have any modern kind of software product out there. Basically, we've upgraded all the dependencies. First and foremost, Spring Boot dependencies. That automatically comes with all kind of third-party dependencies, be it security, be it Kafka, be it you name it. That all comes into one bundle, and that's now part of the 317 release. Now, additionally, we've also upgraded our Q&A systems to run against the latest releases of our supported database platforms. And exactly, you got the right tab already. You can already see it in the documentation today. The ones which are tagged with 317, those are the ones like Oracle 23, like MariaDB 11.4, and stuff like that. So that is now, you could run Flowable against these versions before, but when it's in this list, we also actively do automated Q&A on these databases, on every kind of change we do in the Flowable code base, basically.
That's cool. Are there any other improvements you would like to share?
There's two quite technical ones I want to share, but I think it's quite interesting because many people have asked about this. The first one being the IMAP polling. Now, IMAP or mail in general is one of the oldest protocols in the world, in the kind of digital world and computers that we have. So it's a finicky protocol, right? It was created at a time that was very different, but we still live with that protocol today. So these kind of mail servers, they don't really behave always nicely, and we've done a lot of work in this release to kind of solidify that kind of thing. It was already very stable before, but there were some edge cases where, in some cases, the polling could not get stuck, but could be delayed, and then you would have to do all kind of strange things. But that's all now improved tremendously. The second thing I want to mention is the indexing of, or the speed of indexing of large hierarchies. Now, we've done indexing since a long while to Elasticsearch. And basically, what happens now is that you've got a large hierarchy, case model, root case model, you've got your processes or other case, anyway, it doesn't really matter, lots of variables. And what we saw is that in certain use cases, this could take a while to be indexed. And we've completely refactored this algorithm to also take into account the hierarchy and to cache certain things better that we didn't cache before to speed that thing up. So if you are, if you're running anything Flowable, it's always good to upgrade to 3.17. But I want to say, if you do a lot of large hierarchies, if you do IMAP polling, definitely reasons to upgrade. But really, there is no reason not to upgrade, because as always, this release is the latest and greatest and has so many cool new features. It's almost impossible not to want to upgrade, right? So that was all I wanted to talk about this list. There's way more where this comes from. If you go and look at the release notes, you will see we only covered the highlights of the 3.17 release. And I would say go out and try it out, either locally, on premise, or in our cloud.
As always, thank you, Joram, for taking the time.
Oh, thank you for all the hard work on the demos and the help with this video.
Thank you, everybody, for watching, and see you next time.
See you next time. Bye-bye.